Hello and welcome back to Swimming the Strait. I'm your host, Aitana, and this is season 2 of our podcast. This season, we're talking to women who've taken on epic swimming challenges, facing tough waters, pushing their limits, and showing what real grit looks like. It's all about their journeys, the highs, the lows, and what keeps them diving back in. Get ready for stories that will inspire you to face your own challenges with courage and determination. Welcome back to Swimming Straight. I'm your host, Aitana, and today's guest is Kerianne Brownlie. Kerianne is a nurse and long-distance swimmer with a deep love for the ocean. In this episode, we talk about how she balances her work with her passion for swimming, the mindset it takes to face big challenges, and the quiet power of doing hard things just because they matter to you. Let's dive in. Good morning, Kerianne. Am I saying your name properly? Kerianne?
Yep, Kerianne,
Cool.
yep.
Thank you very much for joining me today in Swimming the Straight podcast. It's been a few months trying to get you on the podcast, and I'm very, very excited to talk to you today. My understanding is that you are in New Zealand now, right?
Yeah, correct. I'm in Picton as we speak.
Nice. So I'm in Spain, so we are 12 hours apart. And I am very, very excited to ask you these questions. We were just talking a little bit before we started the interview, because you have just finished something very exciting.
Yeah.
Please tell us about us. Tell
Yeah,
us about it.
of course. First, I just want to say thank you for having me, and also thank you to Karina Connor in Wellington, who connected us in the fall last year. I've been looking forward to chatting with you, and I think it's worked out really well that we've had to reschedule and wait a little bit to talk, because had we talked in October like we planned originally, I wouldn't have as much to tell you about. But now I can actually talk to you about having swum the Cook Strait, because I successwely completed it last week. So I'm still riding that
Congratulations.
high. Thank you so
Nice.
much.
So yeah, we've been Cook Strait is something very it's a highlight in the podcast, because it's one of my favorite places. I lived in New Zealand 12 years. That's why I know Karina as well, and the swimming community in New Zealand. And just for the listeners, I normally like to tell about what is Cook Strait. And Cook Strait is the body of water that separates or that joins the two islands in New Zealand, and is one of the Ocean Seven. So congratulations, first thing. And please
Yeah.
tell us how it was, because I think the window you had, it was a little bit later, right? But please just tell us everything about the swim and how it went, and how did you feel,
Yeah.
and how did you find it?
Yeah, it was a really exciting swim for me. My wife and I had visited New Zealand last year, which is where and when I met Karina, and we were just here for holiday. A lot of people asked me if I was going to swim the Cook Strait, or if that's why we were here, to check things out and to plan to swim it. And that really wasn't why we were here. We were just spending time together. But right after we left, I had a friend send me a message that she had a slot with Grant Orchard to swim for this year in February, and she wouldn't be able to make the slot. And so she asked me if I wanted to take it over for her. And a lot of my marathon swimming journey has been serendipitous moments like that, where things just kind of fall into place, or a door opens up, or something that I hadn't heard about before, comes into my consciousness. And then I decide, oh, that's something that I want to do. And so it just seemed like really perfect timing to accept that slot from her. And then my wife and I got to come back to New Zealand a lot sooner than we thought we'd be able to, which was incredible. So we flew here the end of January. We arrived in Auckland on the 29th and spent a few days together just traveling around, eating, drinking, swimming. And my swim window originally was going to be the 11th to the 14th of February. And so I got into contact with Grant when I landed here, and I let him know what our travel plans were. And looking at the weather for those days, it didn't seem really great. There was some potential wind and some rain in the forecast. And so Grant asked if I would be willing to swim early, even potentially earlier than the 9th. And I told him, we're in Wellington. We can get over to Picton anytime. You just tell me when we're going to swim. I'm happy to go whenever. When you think is best, that's when we'll go. And he floated the idea of a night swim for a moment, which I would have done, but I was a little nervous about that, honestly. I'm glad
Well, I
I
don't
ended up
blame
getting to
you.
swim in the day. Yeah. The last long swim that I did was the Catalina Channel last year in August, and that was a through the night swim, and it was a lot more mentally challenging for me than I had anticipated. And so, this is the first long swim I've done after that, and I had this image in my mind of swimming in the daytime and getting to see where I was going and really experience the water in that way. And so, it made me a little bit nervous thinking about going at night. So it ended up working out. But yeah, so we were in communication, and then we made a plan to swim on last Friday. I think was the 7th. And so that was a go. We would swim in the daytime. My wife and I rearranged our travel plans, got everything organized to come down here, took a nap, and then I woke up and Grant had messaged again asking if I could swim on Thursday.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, yeah, another change to the plan. And so, we sorted that rather quickly, and that was on Tuesday. And so we took the ferry over from Wellington to Picton on Wednesday, and then had a few hours to get settled and prep my feeds and equipment before the swim on Thursday. And yeah, I feel like there was just a real sense of calm around this swim that I didn't anticipate. I've done a number of long swims at this point, and so a lot of the things that used to make me nervous, like getting the feeds ready and making sure that I have all the equipment that I needed, those sort of things are just routine now, which was really nice to experience. This was my first swim that I've done internationally, and the first swim that I've done on a window. And so those were new variables that I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about, if they would make things seem a little bit more stressful or how they would end up. But those all ended up okay. And the morning of the swim, it was really just wonderful. We had great weather the entire time, minimal wind throughout the swim, which was lovely. And I really just went into the swim with the goal of swimming with joy and gratitude and just staying in the present moment. And so I really just took things feed to feed and had a really joyous time the entire swim. It was really fantastic. And yeah, we had some dolphins. We had a lot of albatross that visited me during the swim. There were a ton of jellyfish. The first 2 hours, it was swimming through pulp, is how it felt. And I felt a few stings, but I didn't realize how much I had gotten stung until I got out of the water. But my entire right arm and hip and leg are covered with stings. And then I have some on my chest and my legs and ankles as well. But yeah, overall, it was a really fantastic experience. I had a really great time.
That is so beautiful because, as I said, this is one of my favorite places, and swimming during the day, I think it does make a change of experience. And
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
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 Congratulations
Yeah.
again. And also, it just comes to my mind the flexibility, right? Like, um, I think it's one of the things that I like about open water swimming, that is like you can put all the work, but when you do go out there, it's also kind of you can't control everything, right? You put the work, you put the mindset, you've done the work, but then it's like whatever nature and the universe wants to deliver. And
Yes.
also moving the window, like I find fascinating that kind of flexibility with the mind as well, which is something that interests me a lot, because of course you have a window, you prepare yourself for that window, and then you go like, no, it's going to be earlier and earlier, and it's like, how do you manage that kind of, like the mental part of the swims?
Yeah. Um, I think for me, a lot of it ties into exactly what you just said, in that there are so many variables that you can't control for, that when I go into these swims, I go in knowing that I've done the training that I can do and I've done the mental preparation that I can do. And that's the only thing I can control, are the things that I've done and the things that are in the past. Um, there were many times during the swim where I thought, okay, things are going pretty well. I seem to be making good progress. I'm feeling really good. The conditions are good. I've got this. We're going to make it to the other side. And then I would think, okay, Kerianne, let's rein it back in. Let's just stay here. At any moment, a shark could come. At any moment, something could happen. The current could change. The wind could pick up. There's no way to predict what's going to happen. So just keep swimming and control what you can right now. Even the morning of the swim, I did something that, is kind of taboo in endurance sport, which is changing up the feed plan. That's another thing
Ooh,
that you can, I
yes.
know, I know. And
Brave
that
you.
that's typically the one thing on the day of a swim that I am still very tightly in control of. Um, but I think just everything that led up to the swim and the flexibility with the window and just getting there. Grant had proposed that we feed at the hour to start. Typically, I just feed, excuse me, every 30 minutes throughout the whole swim. And so I felt a little nervous about that, but I thought, if I'm meant to make it across and if nature is going to let me accomplish this today, it's going to happen. And let's just try to feed at an hour the first time and see how that goes. And it was totally fine. There was no issue with that. And so it's just nice to know, like, hey, I don't need that nutrition at that time. It's okay to wait a little bit longer. But yeah, I think just controlling for the things that you can control for, and then just trying to stay present and enjoy the experience, really.
Mm. Yeah, I love that because like it is hard work, but the whole experience is not only the swim, it's the environment, it's the community that you have around. Like as you were saying, like you are the one swimming, but you have to trust also your support crew. They know what they're doing and they're going to look after you. So in that regard, it's super nice to see that you can trust them, trust the environment, and just go like, okay, my goal and my the thing that I have to do is just swim.
Yes. Yeah. I'm really thankful in that my wife is very supportive of my marathon swimming, and she's been my crew chief for most of the swims that I've done. There are a few that we've had other people step in and help out just because of travel and time off and that sort of thing. But she's been there from the very beginning in 2021 when we really didn't know what we were doing, and we were just kind of testing this out. And we've grown a lot together in our relationship and in swimming through
Mm,
her supporting me. And so now we're at the point where, she's not an endurance athlete herself, but she knows me very well and she knows swimming very well and has really invested herself in the community also. And so I really trust her on the boat. She's
mm,
gotten me through a lot of tough moments out there.
yeah, totally. I think that is such a privilege, right? To have someone who
Yes.
who supports you, and also what you say that grows with you and with the sport, because every swim is different, and because there are so many variables that we cannot control, that adds a level of complexity that
Hmm.
you need someone that knows you and that knows the sport and that is going to know how to react for different things that can happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm. So I'm gonna ask you a question that normally I ask at the beginning of the interview, but since I wanted you to tell us, like the amazing achievement that you had just had, I was like, no, I just want to start. I want to start with the important bit. Have you always been a swimmer?
Yeah, pretty much. I started swimming when I was very young, maybe three, two, three, four, somewhere in that range. I grew up in a neighborhood that had a pool nearby. And so summers were spent with my parents taking me to the pool. My dad was the one who taught me how to swim. I've never taken a formal swim lesson in my life. And so swimming for me in my early years was fun, a summer activity, was not a sport necessarily. I started swimming competitively the summer before my freshman year of high school is when I started. And so I swam throughout high school and the first year of college. And then I quit to, just kind of pursue other things and finish my degree. But when I was a swimmer at that time, I was a sprinter. And so my mindset was just in and out the fastest
Wow.
possible time. Yeah. I it was really quite a change
Yeah.
shifting to marathon swimming. Um, but yeah, so I graduated college in 2015. And so I had quit swimming competitively in 2012. And I swam intermittently, in the years after, but nothing really formal. I tried to find my place on a master's team a few times, but just never really felt like it fit at the moment that I was wanting it to. And then in 2020, I had an intention to try out swimming with another master's team, but of course the pandemic put that on hold.
Mm.
And so I went down to a marina in the area that I live, and I thought, well, there's water here. It seems safe. Nobody else is around, so there's not a COVID risk. I'll just swim here. And that's how my open water swimming journey started. I eventually met a few other people that were also doing the same thing and made some friends doing an Alcatraz swim. And then I swam from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Bay Bridge. And during that swim, I met a pilot who does swims on Lake Tahoe, which is in between California and Nevada in the United States. And she was the one who said, "Hey, when are we going to get this girl marathon swimming?" And my wife was on the boat at that time. And after the swim, she asked me, "What's marathon swimming? This woman just mentioned that. What is that?"
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And so, of course, we started Googling, and that pilot, Sylvia, had sent me an email a few days later with some dates for swims in Tahoe. And one of the days was my birthday. And so, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the marathon journey is just serendipity. And so I thought, well, that'd be a pretty good way to spend my birthday. Let's see if I
Why
can swim
not?
across Lake Tahoe. Yeah, we don't have other plans, so let's just try
Love
it
it.
out. Yeah. So yeah, that's my marathon swimming origin story.
Oh, that's cool. So how did you, because of course, going from sprinting to, like spending 10 hours in the water, that is it's not only a big change on physical, training and preparation, but also the mental side. As you said, like sprinting, I've never done sprinting, um, swimming, but I guess it would be like the mindset is completely different. It's like preparing for like I don't know, like a couple of minutes swim, um,
Yeah.
going from that to a few hours swim. How did that happen?
Yeah. That first season was very interesting because of all the pool lockdowns that we were having in the Bay
Mm,
Area. And so it was really difficult to find a pool where I could train for more than 50 minutes or an hour at a time. And so the way that my work schedule is, I work 3 12-hour shifts a week as a nurse, and
mm,
then I have 4 days off per week. And so I became very obsessive with finding times to swim. And a lot of my days off that first season would be maybe swimming from 7 to 8 a.m. at this pool over here. And then in the afternoon, swimming at a pool 30 minutes away. And then in the evening, doing a 50-minute swim at a pool another hour away. And just kind of piecing together training in that way and just trying to hit. I don't remember exactly now what it was, but whatever the yardage goal was for the week, just trying to piece it together in small bits like that. Um, and a lot of it was just me doing research online about things that other marathon swimmers had written. But I didn't know anybody who did this, and I didn't know anybody in the community. And so as I got a little bit into training, I realized I would benefit from having some sort of coaching. And
mm.
so I hired a woman named Catherine Breed, who is an incredible swimmer. She's local to the Bay Area also. And so she helped me the last couple months getting ready for it was a Tahoe width swim that I did. So it's about 19K or so across the middle of Lake Tahoe. And she helped me really just refine the training plan and provide a lot of encouragement and make sure that I was ready for that day. And then the next year in 2022, things opened up a little bit more. I was able to join the master's team that I was talking about earlier. And I made some other friends in the swimming community who did marathon swims.
Mm.
And so training with them, especially my friend Abby Bergman, she's amazing. We became very close very quickly. And she really helped to elevate both my physical and mental mindset with open water swimming and really helped me get to the point where I felt ready to tackle some of these longer swims.
That's so interesting because normally what I've seen with these interviews is that it happens the other way around. Like you have a strong community that do this kind of swims, and then you go like, oh, let's do it let's try. You get like kind of peer pressure, you see. And
Yeah.
it's very
Yes.
interesting to see that this in this case was the other way around. And I find really interesting what you said about trying to piece together the swims, going half like an hour driving or bike, like finding the pools. And this is just like a little remark, because it's so interesting what swimmers can do in order to go and get their training. Because I lived in Raglan, in a very small place in New Zealand for 3 years, and then the closest pool was an hour driving away, and I would get up at 4:30 in the morning to go swimming before work. So I would drive 1 hour, swim for 1 hour, and come back for an hour. So I relate to what you say. I
Wow.
tried to piece together, like, just because I wanted to swim in the pool. So it's
Oh
just
yeah.
like so interesting how, if you have, like, this is just like a nice way to see that if you want to, you have a will, you find a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just, there are many ways to accomplish a goal, right? So now I'm the one that's peer pressuring my friends into, hey, you should try this or you should try this.
Nice.
Yeah, I know a few of my friends, Stacy and Maya, namely, when they listen to this, they're going to laugh because that's the dynamic of our friendship is, we'll kind of train together and then one of us will plant a seed and then things just kind of bloom from there.
Yeah, totally. It's like, yeah, why don't you try to do this? And then, as you said, the seed is planted, and then it starts growing,
Yeah.
and suddenly you find
Yeah.
yourself in New Zealand swimming the
Yes,
Cook
yes,
Strait.
exactly. Or
I love it.
last year, yeah. Last year, Stacy and I did the 20 bridges around Manhattan in June. And that seed had gotten planted the year before when we were acclimating in Lake Tahoe for, we were doing different swims, but two swims that we were doing. And we were swimming next to each other in the water. And I thought, we pace so well together. And we're both probably going to do long swims next year. Maybe we should do Manhattan. And so I planted the idea. Of course, we had things that we were doing, in the next few days that we had to focus on. So this was a conversation to table for another time. But when we returned to it, we had both already made plans for the next season. And so we knew we were going to need about an 8 hour training swim at some point. And so I told her, hey, it's probably going to take about 8 hours to swim Manhattan. So it makes sense for us to just go and do that because we're going to be spending money to do a training swim anyway. Let's just do Manhattan. She's like, you're so crazy. Okay, let's do it. Let's apply.
Yeah, exactly. You're so crazy, but yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
I love it. Yeah. So, you said that you work as a nurse. So how do you balance? Because, yeah, I find, maybe I'm wrong, but I find nursing quite like a stressful job, maybe. So how
Yeah,
do you
it's very
balance?
stressful.
Yeah, because if you're working for 12 or 14 hour shift, and then you have a few days, so how do you balance not only the training, the physical training, because that's, kind of easier to find ways to train, but how do you balance the mental, load that you have with your work and with your swimming? Do you find that um both things complement each other, or one help to, like, do you know what I mean? Like, if your stress management in your work has somehow helped you with the swim, or maybe the other way around, how do you?
Yeah, they definitely complement each other. Um, and the way that my training works is, the days that I'm working, those are just work days. I've tried to do it where I'll go and swim before work, but it makes for too long of a day for me.
Mm,
Um, and so I try to just be on at work when it's a work day. And then on a day off, I can train and do all the other things that I need to do. But I'm definitely the kind of person that likes to test myself, and I'm kind of attracted to things that are a little bit chaotic and a little bit difficult. And so the job that I have is working in a cardiovascular intensive care unit. So I take care of adults after open heart surgery and life threatening cardiovascular events. And it can be very stressful at times.
mm.
But there's also a lot of beauty and joy in the job that I do. And it's really an honor to walk with people as they're going through some of their hardest days. And so a lot of the strength that I have developed in training for marathon swims also helps me in my job and vice versa. Um, the strength that I have have grown through working in my job helps me with my marathon swimming. Um, and when I did the Tahoe length, that was the first swim that I swam throughout the night. And it took, I don't know, 13 and a half hours or so. And I remember thinking when I got into the water that this is probably going to be just like a night shift. You know, we'll go in, we'll swim, we'll let time pass, and then I'll get out and it'll be time to give report and the next nurse will come on. And so there are some silly things like that that also help mentally. But yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think with open water swimming, long distance open water swimming, the mental part is kind of the most difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can put the work, as we were talking, with the body, you see, but then when you get there, and I find it really interesting that it's so long, but then you have to, well, probably ground is not the word because you're swimming, but kind of
Yeah.
ground yourself, as you were saying, in the present. You cannot, and I guess I don't know. I've never like I've never been a nurse, but I've worked like 14-hour shift, and you cannot think about the whole thing as in I have 14 hours to work or I have 14 hours to swim. You need to focus on what is closer to you that you can achieve, like the next hour and the next K or the next feed or the next. So it's kind of a way of thinking of this huge chunk of time that you're going to be doing something, but you need to take it in smallest pieces
Yeah.
in order to get there. So
Yeah,
how
absolutely. Yeah, I
so
was
how
just thinking when you were saying grounding, you know, it's like this just came to me of it's like the swimming version might be suspending. Like we have to kind
mm,
of suspend ourselves in time, you know.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, what were you gonna ask?
No, I was just
Oh,
thinking about the mental part of it, that you cannot just think about the whole thing, and how you were relating to something that you know, because sometimes when you do a swim that you've never done, or you're gonna swim, sorry, you're gonna swim at a distance that you have never swum, you don't have a reference, and sometimes that's
yes.
good because since you don't have a
Yeah.
reference, you don't you don't know what is that you're facing, right? But when you have kind of a reference, that also helps to, you know, put it in perspective.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. A lot of people will ask me what I think about when I'm swimming. That's
Mm,
a question I
yes.
get a lot, especially from friends or coworkers that don't do endurance sports. And I think that this ties in nicely to what you were just talking about breaking things into smaller chunks, because I try not to really think about much of anything. I found that the swims I've enjoyed the most and that have felt the most successful to me were the ones when I could really find a way to just let myself swim and just let time pass around me. Namely, the Cook Strait. I think that's my favorite swim that I've done. Um,
Nice.
and then also with my Tahoe length, that was another real favorite for me, for very different reasons. But both of those swims were times where I was able to achieve that of just allowing time to pass and just letting myself swim. Um, and yeah, there are so many things that I can be worried about or anxious about or try to control once I'm in the water. But really, all of the things that can be controlled are within me, you know, my mindset, the training that I've done. And so just letting my body do what it knows how to do and allowing my crew to take care of me and my pilot to keep me safe. You know, those are really the best swims when I'm able to do that.
Mm, I love that kind of flow state that you just go there, and it's kind of a meditation state, right? You
Yeah.
just go and swim. Oh man,
Yeah.
woman, I miss it so much.
Oh.
I get there. I go back. I go back. That's
Yes.
not, probably not Cook Strait. I think Cook Strait is. I'm always in awe of all of you guys that you've done Cook Strait. I've said Cook Strait, so I know what it is, and I've studied a little bit of the weather and the currents, and I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. So you said like
Yeah.
that Cook Strait is one of your favorite swims. Why is that?
I was just really enjoying the entire experience. Um, Before swims, my wife and I will say to each other, "All right, we're just going for a little swim." And so we try to keep everything very light and try to keep things as low stress as possible. And so, we said that to ourselves before I left and got in the water. And really, the whole swim was just pretty magical. I think, as you know, and probably have heard from other people that have done this swim, either attempted or completed. The water there is really just, it's something different.
Mm,
It's really magnificent and it's really special. Um, and so I think what made it one of the favorites for me is that I just swam with so much joy and so much happiness for being where I was in the swim. And I really truly had no concept of how long I had been in the water at any point during the swim. Um, and I didn't really care. I was happy to just continue on. There was a point where I could start seeing the North Island. We swam south to north. And then I couldn't see it anymore. And then I could see it, and then I couldn't see it. And I was really confused as to what the orientation was and what was
mm,
happening. And I thought, well, maybe I'm stuck in a current or something, and I'm actually getting pushed backwards and I'm kind of moving forward and back. I wasn't really sure. But all of these thoughts that kind of came into my mind during the swim, I just let them pass through and just told myself, continue swimming. If something's wrong, Grant will flag me. If I need to get out, he'll let me know. Otherwise, I'm just here to swim, take a feed, and swim again. That's all I need to do. Um, and there was a bit of a rip current, I guess, 3K or so off of the North Island that I got stuck in, and my progress slowed quite a bit. And I could feel it in the water at that point. It got a little bit more choppy than it had been. And at that point, I thought to myself that I wasn't sure if the island was going to let me get to her.
mm,
And I thought, okay, well, this has been a really good experience, but it's very possible that I'm not going to get there. And that's okay. It would be a
mm.
bummer, honestly, to have swum that far and not get there, but that's okay. If that's what the day is going to bring, that's okay. And of course, we were able to get through that rip and make it there. But yeah, I think that's overall what made it a really good swim for me. It was just my mindset was great and I had a really good time and I felt really safe with my pilot and crew. And it was just, yeah, a really beautiful day. We had pristine conditions. It couldn't have been better, really.
That's so good. I'm so happy that you enjoy that because, as I said, that's one
Yeah.
of my favorite places on earth. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was also going to just bring the attention about the humbling experience that is open water swimming. Like, because what you said about like maybe we're not like they like the island is not going to allow me to get there, right? It's like I don't know. It's very. I think you can learn a lot of things for life as well. That sometimes life is not fair, right? That you've done the work,
Mhm.
you've done everything that is on your power, but things don't work out. And then I find that is not only very humbling experience, but also like a way to. Maybe I'm getting very philosophical now because it's very
Yeah.
early in the morning. But like yeah, just like that. Sometimes things don't work out, but at the same time what you were saying is that like there are many ways to achieve a goal, that is not only one way. Like sometimes we think that everything has to be this way, but there like if you have the goal, you will try to make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate my marathon swimming journey in that it has helped me learn to relinquish control of things that I'm not actually in control of, and has really helped me with my mental health, just putting life into perspective for me, um, and helping other people also realize these things, and hopefully inspiring other people to not only dream big, but then also to be less attached to the outcome,
Mm,
and to really just enjoy the experience for what it is.
I love that, less attached to the outcome, because yeah, I think nowadays we are so pressure into the goals and the result and that we kind of forget a little bit the journey. And in this kind of long swims, the journey is kind of the important thing, right?
Yeah, it's really what's brought meaning to me in all of these swims. Um, Before we started this interview, I went through and kind of looked at the different swims that I'd done because I wasn't sure what you were going to ask me. And I thought, well, if she asked me what swims I've done or how long they took or how long the swim was, even, or what the water temperature was. I can't remember all of that information. You know,
Mm,
that's not what was important to me. But the things that I learned and the feelings that I had and the people that were there, that's what really stands out. And so for me, that's what keeps me going back and seeking other swims is wanting to learn what else is out there for me to discover
mm,
about myself and about the world.
mm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, yeah, I love it. Yes.
I'm a little
Yes.
touchy feely person, also, if you didn't notice,
Yeah, no, that's
all
good.
philosophical.
That is totally good because yes, like this podcast at the end is about, of course, it's about like the long swings, but I'm more interested in what it is that you feel or how you prepare or how how did you um face it. Like, of course, like numbers are good, of course, but like I'm more interested in what it is behind it and what has taken you to take the challenge and actually complete it.
Yeah,
And it's really nice that yeah, the numbers fade, but the feeling and the people that you were around, they stay.
yeah, definitely.
Was Cook Strait the colder swim that you've done?
Um, Again, that's a hard question. um, I don't think it's the coldest swim that I've done, and the water that I train in San Francisco is a lot colder.
Okay.
Um, and it was actually quite nice because it's our winter right now, and so
Mm,
I've been swimming in. I might have written it down. Anyway, not too important, but I've been swimming in water that's very cold, and I've only really been training for up to an hour or so, even in open water recently. Um, and so, no, the water temperature felt really comfortable for me during the
okay.
Cook Strait. Yeah, yeah. I think we had like 15 to 17 Celsius for most of the swim, and then some
Mm.
patches that were a little bit cooler and a little bit warmer. Um, but yeah, that was one thing too. When I got out on the boat, one of the deckhands looked at me and he asked, "Aren't you cold?" I'm like, "No, the sun's out. I'm happy. Everything's good. I'm fine."
Nice. It's just because normally I like to ask if you prepare somehow for cold waters, if you do any kind of preparations to swim in cold, not only cold but to be in cold water for so long. So
Yeah, I
if you
think,
do something.
yeah, not anything particular for this swim. But I train year round in the San Francisco Bay without a wetsuit.
Mm,
And so for this swim, I actually felt a little bit under prepared just with the amount of swimming that I'd done and that I'd mostly been doing pool swimming. Um, but yeah, I think just swimming year round in the colder San Francisco Bay made it so that this swim felt really nice.
that's nice. Yeah, for me now that I
Yeah,
live in
yeah.
Spain, I would be like, that's super cold. But I used to
Oh, of
swim it.
course.
I will have to do a lot of preparation to swim in New Zealand again.
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting soft. Okay, so just before in the conversation, you said that one of the things that you like about your swimming is that potentially can inspire people because this like open water swimming is very community based, and it's true that you plant the seed while talking to other people. So, do you keep a record? Do you keep, like, do you share your experiences and your stories somewhere?
Yeah, I do actually. I started a swim blog a couple years ago, and I do a write up of each of the long swims that I've done. And there are a few other things on there, like some shorter swims and swim camps that I've gone to that I really loved. And so I found that that's been a great way for me to use the creative side of my brain
Mm,
and have that as an outlet. I've always loved writing, and so it's been great to put together the blog in that way. And it's also been really interesting to see who reads it and who asks me questions about my swims afterwards or who comments or sends me messages. It's not always the people that I think are paying attention to the things that I'm doing. So that's been pretty interesting. But it's very simple. Kerianneswims.com is the blog.
oh,
And
fantastic.
yeah, I'd love for you to share it if anyone's interested.
Yeah, I will put the link in the comments and the information of the podcast. Yes, I put the link, and I think that it's also such a not only for you to remember your swims, but also, as you were saying at the beginning, when you started your swimming, like not career, but like your swimming, open water swimming adventure, you were reading and researching about how their swimmers were doing it. And I think that is a very valuable, like resource for other swimmers also. Swimmers and non-swimmers, but I'm thinking now about swimmers that want to get introduced into open water swimming, just to read from firsthand um, the archives or the logs of your swims. So that is a really, really cool idea. So then my last question, maybe it's a little bit early to ask about this question, and this is no pressure. This is just in case you have anything planned for the future. Like now that like I want you to enjoy this, like this massive achievement, and then I guess it's going to stay with you for a long time. But just in case you have anything planned for the future, what are your training plans, or just if you can give us a little bit of
definitely.
peek.
That's funny you ask it that way too, because I'm definitely the kind of person that, I try to really bask in the feeling of completing a big swim, but my mind is so much focused on, okay, what's next? Let's do something else fun. What's the next adventure? And so even today, my wife and friend and I went for a hike on the Queen Charlotte track, and we hiked
Beautiful.
maybe 7 or 8 miles. Yeah, it was like 3 hours or so. Amazing. And while we're hiking, I thought, well, I don't have swim plans next year. Maybe we should do a long distance hike. But swimming related this year, I have an English Channel window the first week of August. And so that's the big thing that I have planned for this year. And another reason why I'm very thankful to have had this opportunity in the Cook Strait, with it being, the first international swim and the first swim on a window, because I booked the English Channel slot, I think 3 years ago at the very beginning of my swim journey. I didn't even know if I would want to do more than the one marathon swim I had done at that point. But my friends that I had met said if I had any inclination I wanted to do the English Channel, just send out the emails and get it booked, and I can figure out the details later. And so I'm thankful to them. They were right.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I have a little bit of experience with doing the travel and some of the window. But yeah, that's what's up next. English Channel.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. That sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, keep us updated with that. I will keep following you to see how it goes. And thank you very much, Kerianne, for joining us today. It's been a lovely chat. Congratulations again for your Cook Strait, and enjoy New Zealand.
Thank you.
Just keep us updated, and thank you very much again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you for listening to Swim in the Strait. We hope these stories of incredible women have inspired you. If you have any suggestions or questions, send us an email at hello@aitanaforcen.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Until next time, keep swimming. I'm Aitana, and this has been Swim in the Strait.